Hi, I'm Jules McConnell, Australian skydiving champion, specialising in canopy formation. And you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome back, or welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by the Gold Coast Marathon and Pogo Physio. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll bring you a range of episodes, including featured performers, expert editions, coaches' corner editions, and interest editions. And on today's episode, we are featuring an interest edition, quite unlike any episode to date. Today, I'll share with you a conversation I recently had with one of Australia's most decorated skydivers. That's right, skydivers, Jules McConnel. By way of bio, there is very little that Jules McConnel has not done in the world of skydiving. To date, she has amassed an incredible 10,500 jumps in her career, at times through her key professional years, jumping up to 900 times per year. In 2012, Jules joined up with her jumping partner, Michael Vaughan, to set an Australasian record of 300 jumps in a day. That's right, 300 skydives in a single day. Jules specialises in canopy formation jumping and has been a many times over Australian representative at the World Skydiving Championships, and at the time of recording was preparing for the upcoming World Championships to be held in Siberia. Topic-wise, we'll talk about, of course, the highs, the lows, and the learnings. Jules touches on the need to fight complacency in all that we do, remaining focused, the importance of listening to coaches, respecting those that have gone before us, and Jules outlines the darkest day in her professional career, that of losing her jumping partner in a fatal accident, Michael Vaughan, in 2015. So, as we say each and every week, but perhaps never more pertinent than today's featured guest, let's jump in with Jules McConnel. And should I add that if you have ever considered skydiving, then Jules has an encouraging message for you today. Jules McConnel, this is a real treat and thrill to have you literally jump in with us today. You do have your feet planted on the earth at the moment, but that's a rarity for you. So you are the Physical Performance Show's very first professional skydiver, and I know your world extends beyond that, but welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Jules, let's start with something fun. What's one thing that you're learning at the moment in your world?
What I'm learning is a new position in our team. So I guess for most of the audience, they probably don't know a lot about skydiving, and my particular discipline is canopy formation. Basically, we open up our parachutes and we link our parachutes together. I'm in a team of 4, and usually I'm at the top of the formation. We've decided to change it up and mix what we call slots. I guess it'd be like learning, if you were a halfback, then learning to be, a forward or something like that in a team. So it's interesting. I'm learning a lot.
You can't run out your back door and practice this manoeuvre or this formation with your teammates just like that. There's a fair bit of planning to get up in the sky and get out of the plane, right? So you kind of seemingly have finite ability to refine the skill, like finite opportunities, to refine the skills.
Yeah, that's right. So, we watch videos of other people doing it. We've also got our own specific spots or slots in the formations. So we look at the videos, of what we do and sort of look at what our teammates do in that particular slot that we're going to be changing to, and mentally rehearse which is a massive thing for us. And then we've got about maybe 7 minutes when we're training to actually practice from the moment we exit the plane to break off. But actually in competition, we've only got a 2-minute window. It's not a lot of time. We spend a lot of time on the ground, what we call dirt diving, and practicing sort of walking through the formation and mentally visualising. But like I said, there's not a lot of time when we're up there to do it.
Yeah, so it's so different, isn't it, to the swimmer refining their stroke or the runner refining their technique. Jules, I believe you've had more than 10,500 jumps over 23 years of skydiving. Are those numbers sound? Yep,
that's pretty accurate.
So 10,500 over those years, you're looking at my maths briefly here, maybe would that be right? 500 a year, or is that?
About 500 a year. So when I first started, I was doing probably 200 or so a year. Then when I became professional, it was closer to 900 a year. And now I've sort of backed off to about 300 a year. I'm doing less sort of work jumping and more just team training and focusing on that, and a little bit of coaching as well. A lot of what I do is coaching on the ground now.
And Jules, when you say, when you went professional, is that professional in an income sense, in the sense that you're taking people up for their jumps in tandems, or just recreational jumpers, or actually competing on the circuit, so to speak?
When I talk professional, that's more making an income. So taking people for tandem skydives and teaching people to learn to skydive for the first time, like solo, and then the competition side, we don't get paid for. We have our federation, the Australian Parachute Federation, are probably one of the leading in the world in supporting their sports competitors, and they do have some funding that we can use towards training and coaching. But a lot of it is quite amateur, and there's no, prize money for competitions or anything like that.
Yeah, so no, thank you for clarifying. But the rest of the time, you're still jumping out of planes all the same, but you've just got someone on your, you're on their back, aren't you?
Yeah.
Exactly. Jules, your credential list reads as long as almost a piece of A4 paper with modest size font. The national Canopy pilot and intermediate speed champion 2007, current world record 100-way Canopy formation participant, national 2-way sequential CF champion across multiple years, bronze medalist, silver medalist. The list is extensive. What would you rate, out of all these accomplishments in your sport, as your greatest physical accomplishment to date with your diving, your skydiving?
I would have to say my best accomplishment, both physically, mentally, and just the best day of skydiving in my life was when I did 150 jumps in a day with my teammate, Michael Vaughan. It was an Australian record. We set back in January 2012, I think. And, it was an amazing day. We did 150 jumps each, jumping out of the same plane. We were raising money for our team plus the Westpac Rescue helicopter. And we had about 40 volunteers who were helping us just make it an amazing day.
So I don't even know where to start processing that. 150 jumps in a day. So first, obviously, question is, what time did you start and what time did you finish?
So we started just before daybreak. I think we're all up at around 4:30 in the morning, and we had wheels off by about 5. And we did our first 20 jumps before the sun came up. And because we figured on average like 10 jumps an hour, which would take 15 hours, and then add in a bit of fudge factor. We thought we'd rather finish before, start early in the dark rather than finishing in the dark. We actually managed to finish at 4:30 in the afternoon, so we did it in less than 12 hours. So we're really stoked. It was an average of about 15 jumps an hour.
So 15 jumps an hour, I can't even process. That's 4 minutes every jump, is that right?
Yeah, so most people when they do their first skydive, they go up to 14 or 15,000 feet, and they have a minute of free fall and then 4 or 5 minutes floating down under their parachute. For us, we were just going up to sort of the bare minimum, about anywhere from 2,500 to 4,000 feet. And we'd get out, open our parachute straight away, spiral down, land, and we had someone helping us out of our gear, another person putting another set of gear on. We had about 10 sets of equipment each that our friends had lent us for the event. And so there were people in a marquee next to the runway who were packing for us. And we would just jump out of one plane, there'd be another plane there ready for us to jump back into, and we'd just repeat for 12 hours.
Wow. Is there any video of this record, Jules?
There is. I'd have to find a link for you.
Yeah, please.
OzRecordJumps.com. Okay. I'm not sure if that website is still up because it has been like 7 years. But there's definitely some links. Our team name was Okunino. So you probably find some links to it through our Facebook.
We will throw that up on the show, in the show notes. That's spectacular. Well, congratulations. And my obvious thinking is, as the fatigue kicks in, does the risk go great? Like the profile grow greater? I mean, anyone that walks on Earth, has some degree of fear, unless obviously you're well seasoned like yourself, of jumping out of a plane. So is that just an incorrect view, that the more jumps you do in one day, the greater the fatigue, the greater the risk of making an error, or not really?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So we, part of the volunteer team, there were some nurses, in case we injured ourselves. We had sort of a general manager who was just keeping an eye on us, and we planned like the day beforehand, some good light snacks to keep us going, with protein and energy. We definitely kept a check on each other. So one of the volunteers that would always have food in one of the planes, there was water in both of the planes topped up. And even the training beforehand, we did a lot of sort of interval training and just, fitness. I remember I had like a weight. A friend of mine had filled a tyre with sand so that I could put that around my neck. It was like about 10 kilos, which is about the weight of a parachute. And I just do some interval training with that. Just rather than getting my rig all sweaty while I'm training, just practicing, fatigue management beforehand. I felt like I was physically prepared really well for it, but the mental side of it was a bit of a challenge. There's so much adrenaline, and so we just kept each other in check, as well as the pilots were really great, and the ground staff. We had didn't really stop and for a break as such. We sort of kept going with the momentum, but we definitely the plane ride was time for us just to relax, make sure we were all good, and give each other a little pep talk before we jumped again. But there's certainly a bigger risk of doing that many jumps. There was a lot more preparation involved, both physically and mentally.
Wow, and that's the Australian record. Is there a world record that still sits outside of this Australian number that you both achieved?
Yeah, well, there is, and it's like 600 plus jumps. Now, that's in 24-hour period. We just decided to go for 150 to break the previous record, which was 100 jumps in a day. Now, that 100 jumps in a day was done in 24 hours, but the guy who did that, he packed every single parachute for himself.
Wow.
So we actually asked the Parachute Federation, I think you really need to keep that as a record for itself, or some sort of at least special achievement, because having to pack your own parachute and jump that many times is an amazing feat.
Gosh, absolutely incredible. And 600 jumps as well. I mean, that takes nothing away from the amazing achievement of yourself and your teammate. But that's just blown my mind, Jules. Jules, what would you say is the most important mental attribute to do both the professional work that you do and also, these incredible records that you set? What's the number one attribute psychologically?
I think it's important to remain calm and focused, and never think that you're all over it. I think in our sport, the hot word of the day at the moment is complacency when it comes to people having accidents. And I think it's really important that you treat every jump as the same, that you're just as focused from one jump, even though if you nailed it, whether it's competing or in the work environment. Yeah, you can't be complacent and just sort of look over your gear and think that's okay. I've seen it 1,000 times before. It's fine. You've really got to, just attention to detail and, just treat each jump with the same, I guess, respect and it's that mental focus of, being particular, I guess, and precise about everything you do.
So calm and focused, and it is possible then to be calm in the face of turbulence, both literally with the winds gusting on you, but also the turbulence of trying to make a formation with 3 other teammates with the Canopy formation. So you're telling me that is possible.
Yeah, look, it is. And, when a lot of people look at our discipline and even skydivers and they just go, you guys are nuts, because a lot of people see the parachute as the life-saving device. And look, we do too. We are not. I think we're more calculated than any skydiver, just because we don't want to have an entanglement with our teammates. Look, it does happen, and like you asked before, what are we learning right now? We're learning new slots, and what that means is that we're not going to do it perfectly, and we are going to tangle with each other every now and again, but we have a safety margin. Like we stop working at 4,000 feet, which gives us a lot of time to deal with any sort of entanglement. And we trust each other, and we've been doing it for a long time now. And there's certain procedures that we go through. We talk to each other. We actually have Bluetooth headset devices so we can talk to each other while we're doing our manoeuvres. So if there is any problem, we can have really clear communication about what to do.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because you wouldn't assume that you are connected like that. So you can actually talk to each other while you're doing this.
Yeah. And we're one of the few events that use Bluetooth headsets. Like the free fall, it's all too fast and probably too noisy as well, whereas under the parachute it's a bit quieter and we have more time. So it's really important that we can have that clear communication. And sometimes if for some reason the comms fail, we'll tend to just not even connect together just because it's not worth it. We really want to have clear communication with each other.
So from the outside, what looks quite risky or high-level risk, and it still is high-level risk, but that risk can be reduced somewhat through, as you say, being calm and focused, meticulously prepared. And it makes me think, Jules, of the Red Bull high performance manager Andy Walsh once sharing around the jumps that Robbie Madison used to do when he did that LA, jumped up on the Eiffel Tower lookalike and on his motorbike and off the other side, and the world looked at that in amazement at such a risky jump. But what they didn't see was the hundreds of jumps he was doing on a wooden platform in the desert, where they would make it just half a metre or a metre, whatever the increments were, higher each time, and he just kept jumping higher until the Las Vegas jump was just like, this is what I'm doing. So so there's such power in that principle. Jules, has there ever been a time or occasion where you did get complacent and it gave you a fright, or it was not likely a good outcome?
Look, I've had a couple of injuries, in 23 years, and actually, and I guess that was due to complacency. I had one earlier in my skydiving career. I only had like 300 or 400 jumps, and I mean, I look back at it now, and it was definitely my bad attitude. I was sort of a bit gung ho when I first started. I was only sort of 19 when I started jumping, so I was probably about 20 when the accident happened. And the main thing was that I didn't listen to my coaches. I thought, I can do what I want, and I actually jumped a parachute that was too small for me, and at the time, and I didn't get away with it, and I should have listened to my coaches. And now the tables have turned, and I'm now one of those coaches, trying to say, don't do what I did, because there are people who like to push when they're not quite ready, and just explain to them, look, I don't want you to be in the same position where I was and injure myself just for making a silly decision. So the big thing, I think the big lesson learnt for me is, respect the people who have already walked down your path. And that's what we're trying to, or myself now as a coach, is trying to, instill that same,
ethos.
Information to others. Yeah, an ethos. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just the human condition, isn't it? That when you are in your early 20s or 20, you are bulletproof, and you can listen, you can hear, but not listen really. And we've all been there. So, you're having any success in passing on that that ethos?
Definitely. Look, and it's not just that age. It's actually about the number of jumps. It seems to be between 200 and 500. That people just go, oh yeah, I've got this. I know everything. She'll be right. But yeah, look, some people question it, but once they see other people who don't listen, have those errors, then they go, oh right, now I understand why you're saying that.
Yeah. So. And you would have across your career, Jules, spanning more than 2 decades in the sky, you would have seen some things go wrong.
And look, even haven't seen some really nasty accidents. When it goes wrong, it can go wrong pretty bad. But I actually have another hat that I wear, should I say, is in the safety team of the Australian Parachute Federation, and I sort of monitor the incident trends. As far as under parachute, just to try and mitigate those incidents, and looking at the number of landing problems that we have compared to how many skydives are done in a year, is like the percentage is tiny. It's like 0.02% of a chance that you're going to injure yourself on a skydive. Whereas if you look at, motocross or even skateboarding, like or rugby, it's like 5%, chance of injury. So the chances of being injured are minimal. And even a lot of those are just grazes or sprains. But there are a handful of incidents that a year that, are either fatal or pretty nasty. And they're the ones that, they always shock our community, because we are such a small community. But the investigation that happens with those incidents are phenomenal, and to try and make sure that those same mistakes aren't made again.
Yeah. Jules, what's been, before we go into some learnings, the highs, as you say, the Australian record with your teammate, what's been the lowest, the darkest day in your skydiving career to date? Losing my teammate. He had an accident in 2015. It's definitely one of the lowest. I wasn't there, thank God, but I think losing close friends is a hard one, and someone who you've been training with for a long time and respect. Yeah. Was that, Jules, your Australian record jumping teammate?
Yeah. Michael Vaughan, amazing man. Definitely respected in the community. Lots of people admired and respected him. He was an amazing coach, amazing athlete, and just a beautiful person as well.
And his name lives in the record books right alongside yours. So I'm sure if we asked Michael the same question, the highest career moment for Michael, he probably would have rated that Australian record too, by the sounds of it.
I think it was definitely one of ours together for sure. Yeah. And we were on the world record 100 way, and that was up there, just seeing this wall of parachutes and actually, connecting with them. That was, and us doing that together, some really special moments that we shared together.
Yeah, wow. Speed-wise, Jules, what speed are you typically travelling at as you're before you pull the cord for the chute? What are you?
Okay, well, that's an interesting question, because we, in our team, we open our parachutes pretty much as soon as we exit the plane. So the plane's going about 80 knots forward, and our descent rate, it hasn't built up too much. Whereas people who are in free fall, there's different disciplines in free fall. Some are going around sort of 200 k's an hour. That's on average if you're falling belly to earth. if you're falling sort of, some of them go head up and head down, and they're going probably more like, 250, 260 Ks an hour. Then you've got speed skydivers who are actually trying to go as fast in free fall as they can, and they're doing in excess of 400 Ks an hour.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's the range of speeds. Jules, in terms of fitness, how important is it for the work you do and the sport that you do? How important is fitness and physical robustness in this?
Look, it's interesting. You look at the range of competitors, like on a world class scale, and some are. I think we're all fit in our own ways, but some, are quite large. Especially the Canopy pilot, which is, I'm at an event right now. It's the National Canopy Piloting Championships here in York, in Western Australia. And some of the guys are tiny, and they actually have to wear lead to make themselves go faster. And they flying tiny little parachutes to go as fast as they can across the ground. And then some of the guys actually bulk up. I've got one friend, Cameron Jarrett, he said to me, Jules, I can't wait till this event is over so I can stop eating, because he's eating as well as going to the gym, and he's put on about 9 or 10 extra kilos that he really feels uncomfortable wearing, but it's to give him more power to go faster.
Yeah, wow. And outside for you personally, outside of your jumps, on average you were doing 500 a year. Now you're down to the 300 at the moment, doing some dirt work as well. Feels good to say that, dirt work. But Jules, is there any key things in your week that help you stay at your physical best, like gym work or anything that you like to do?
Yeah, look, yoga is a massive one for me. I really like power yoga as well as yin before I go to bed, just to chill out. But it's really good for physical, strength as well as that, mental training. And then as far as sort of to get my heart rate up, I like to just do my own interval training. I'm not much of a gym junkie. I just prefer to, run up the beach or, take my dog for a run. Like I said, do some interval work and do my own sort of push-ups and chin-ups at home, as opposed to actually slogging it out in a gym.
You're listening to professional skydiver Jules McConnell sharing around the highs and the lows of her career to date on this An Interest edition. Support for today's show comes from the Gold Coast Marathon. Just like the Physical Performance Show, the Gold Coast Marathon encourages runners of all ages and abilities to push their boundaries and strive to complete a personal challenge. The Gold Coast Marathon is held annually on the first weekend in July and is a must-do event for any budding athlete, weekend warrior, or family looking for a challenge to complete together. Run for the good times at the Gold Coast Marathon. Visit goldcoastmarathon.com.au. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo Physio to get back to their physical best, complete their rehabilitation, and in doing so, cross their physio finish line. The first step in crossing the physio finish line is to ensure you are accurately diagnosed, and to achieve this, at Pogo Physio, we offer all clients a 1-hour initial comprehensive appointment. So to schedule your 1-hour initial appointment, jump over to pogophysio.com.au or simply check out the many great helps and tips in our top 20 international physio website, blog reel over at pogophysio.com.au. For now, let's jump back with this week's Interest edition featuring record-holding professional skydiver Jules McConnell.
Your favourite session, your favourite training session, what is that, Jules?
You know what? So I've got this, speaking of like running on the beach, we've got this little bay, it's called Shark Bay, and it's about 500 metres. And that's what I really enjoy doing, my interval training. So I'll just run, do a set of push-ups, run back, do a set of burpees, run back, do a set of sit-ups. and run back, do plank hold, and sort of repeat that. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful place, in nature, as well as getting fit and, sweating and huffing and puffing.
Yeah, exactly. Session you most dislike, Jules, what would that be?
I would say doing chin-ups.
How many are we talking?
Look, I can do 10. It's a struggle, and I can't. Yeah, I don't train them enough. I should train them more.
Well, that's still very impressive. Jules, who is the athlete or performer or physical performer that you most admire, and why?
I mean, my teammate Michael Vaughan, I was just so admirable of him. He could do. We were at this demonstration at a display jump in China, and we get up at like 4 a.m. to go to these. They've got these outdoor gym session, like gym sort of gymnasiums where it's just like antiquated sort of like. I don't know, I wouldn't say antiquated, but it's just like an outdoor gym, sort of when you're walking through Queensland, how they have those, in the parks, the outdoor gym areas?
Yep.
Yeah, so they've got these in China, and there are all these old people doing their Tai Chi, and then there's some old, I reckon this guy must have been 80, and him and Michael had a chin-up competition, and it was hilarious. Like they did 50 chin-ups together, and it was just incredible to watch.
Wow. So and that's continuous, or that was 50 would be or like 5 lots of 10?
No, it was. They just kept going, just continuous. Wow. And even this old fella, he must have been 80. It was just amazing, and they both gave each other a big hug and a big smile at the end.
Oh, isn't that great? Well, I have that as a bucket list. I haven't been working diligently at it, but 50 chin-ups in a row or 50 pull-ups. But there you go, Michael Vaughan set that one as well. Is there a mantra that, Jules, you use when you're out there competing or training? Like, is there some regular self-talk that you do have going on, and what is it?
I definitely just remind myself to breathe, in the plane, especially, 3 minutes. We have a little with our team. It started off, we were two-way teams, and we got together and made a 4-way team. And the other 2-way team's name was Chaps. And they used to always give a little signal, like as though you're raising a cup of tea, like pip, pip, tally-ho. And so we sort of do that before we, at the 3 minutes, we're sort of getting together, and we, all teams have their own little secret handshakes, and we just have this little pip, pip, tally-ho, which, gets us all connected together, and then after that we check our gear, and then I just really go into a bit of deep breathing and just try and calm my brain. I might just mentally rehearse the skydive one more time, and then I just breathe, and that's what I just think. Just breathe, just treat it as another jump.
And when you perform the skydive, do you see that, visualise that from start to finish, or you just the start and then you skip to the end, or how does it actually play out?
Definitely when we're on the ground, I really try and visualise myself sort of flying my parachute up into the position. When I'm in the plane, like right before we exit, I'll just I'll only focus on the actual sequence, whereas when we take off in the plane, we've got about, sort of anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to prepare in the plane. And whenever we take off, I always try and visualise from me exiting the plane, so thinking about me opening my parachute, flying back to the formation, and then the entire sequence. And probably just the sequence like once or twice, just to get it locked into my head. And then, like I said, when we actually, just before exit, I'll just think about the sequence once and go, yep, got that. Just because, we call it brain locking when someone forgets the next point. And we're kind of lucky, like I said before, we've got the Bluetooth headset, so we can remind ourselves of what the next point is in case someone's having a bit of a moment.
Brain locking, wow. And I've never heard of that phrase before, so that's a skydiving specific phrase.
It definitely is, yeah.
Brain lock as in your brain's locked. You got to get it unlocked.
Yeah, totally. You're just like, brain lock, next, yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to adopt that into my day-to-day vernacular. Jules, how would you describe, final few questions here in the performance round, how would you describe being in the zone?
Wow, it's amazing when you're there. And I wish it happened more often, especially in comp. But it's like everything slows down. And you're just connected with, like, it's just like you and your teammates are one, and everything's just gelling together perfectly. And it's like you've been there before almost, and just the visuals of the parachute either coming to you and you're connecting it with your feet, and it's just like, yes, we've got this. And it's funny because, like you think that you've done this really slow jump, but cool. And then you look at it and you're like, man, we kicked ass then. Like, that was super fast. But I think the best jumps you do are the ones that just feel slow.
Yeah, wow. And I just love that, in the sense that you can ask a swimmer or a runner or pick the endeavour, and no matter whether they're going the speed that you are or whether they're actually going at a much slower speed on Earth, it's the same often sensation that's described. It's a slowing down of time. Isn't that just fascinating?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Jules, when was the last time you were in the zone?
Look, because like you asked before, we're learning new stuff. So we just finished our nationals, and we were trying new slots in the competition. For us this year, it was a bit of a throwaway competition. We sort of have an on year and an off year, and this year is our off year. Next year will be an on year where we're competing to represent Australia for the World Championships, which will be in Russia. So it definitely wasn't at the nationals we just had. But right now I'm actually doing some media for Canopy piloting, and been doing some practice runs on the pond, which I haven't done for a long time, and got a little bit of coaching from one of the international coaches that's here, Pat Kay, and he just gave me a couple of tips, and then I just went up and did it, and I was just like, oh, yeah, that is it. Like, yeah, it was just, wow, yeah, this is what I remember doing years ago. It's been a while since I've, done canopy piloting and flown over a pond, but I really felt like I was back.
When you say flying over a pond, am I visualising what you're describing correctly? Like you're flying over a pond as in as you've jumped out of the plane, or you're flying the craft?
Oh, yeah, no, so you jump out of the plane. So this is a different discipline I used to compete in, but I kind of had to choose between the two. I just don't have enough time in the day to do both, unfortunately, and I do love them both. But, yeah, so basically you open up your parachute, and it's a solo event where you're flying a nice, super fast parachute. You sort of spin it up, about 1,000 feet above the ground. You start making some revolutions to increase your vertical speed, which then you pull out across the pond through the entry gates, and you're flying as fast as you can horizontally across the pond, and you can actually drag your feet through the water, and it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, well, I have a feeling I might have seen that before, with that maybe on YouTube or somewhere. Jules, well done. You're out of the performance round. Do you, when you think about what you do, do you feel like, you're wired very differently to most?
Yeah, I guess, we're a small community of about, 5,000 who are actively licensed, skydivers in the country, which is a really small percentage of the population. I don't know, but in saying that, there's, more than, I think it was close to 200,000 people did tandem skydives last year. So a lot of people sort of dabble in it. But there's few of us that actually keep doing it sort of regularly. And then I guess even a few of us, again, that that do it competitively, and internationally, we are actually a pretty small community. But I'm sure there's other sports out there that are similar, quite different, unique.
Yeah, I just think it's fascinating. Like, as you say, the perception is it's high risk, but the reality is you've got more chance getting hurt playing a game of football. What would you say, Jules, to someone that's considering a tandem jump that's been sitting on the fence, that's been on their bucket list? What would Jules McConnell's advice be to the fence sitter who wants to do the bucket list item?
Get off the fence. It's amazing. Like, yeah, just do it. You know, if money's an issue, it doesn't matter. You're not. You know, we always sort of say, you know, you can't take money with you. So yeah, look, it makes you look at the whole world a little bit differently once you fall out of a plane. Like, you look up at the sky. Like, I remember not jumping. I had a period where I didn't jump for a few months, and I was travelling around Australia. And I was in Ayers Rock, and I felt like I was stuck there. And I was just like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, oh, and I realised, I looked up at the sky, and I was just like, I haven't been skydiving for a few months. So next thing, I went up to Darwin and jumped out of a plane, and it sort of put my equilibrium back. But it's definitely, yeah, you got to try it once.
If you missed last week's episode featuring featured performer and up-and-coming triathlon star Hayden Wild, then here's a little snippet of what you missed.
You know, we've had some pretty good success in the off-road, but you kind of got to think, you know, as coming from, you know, 2 years ago, from complete nothing, and then, you know, being a world champion, it was pretty awesome. But it would have to probably be maybe in Singapore when I got onto the podium. You know, that was the big goal of getting a podium on the Super League Series, just getting on top of Henry. And I thought I could probably hold on to Tyler and Johnny, but I kind of, the second lap, that's when I put a big kick in, and Johnny responded, and then it all kind of stopped a little bit, and then Johnny put a big kick in for like 500 metres, and I just didn't have the heat to respond to it.
To enjoy the full episode 162, featuring Hayden Wild, be sure to jump over to your favourite podcast player and tune in from there. The Physical Performance Show is available across all platforms: iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and more. While there, be sure to peruse the full archives dating right back to episode 1, featuring Surf Lifesaving Ironman champion Ali Dade. For now, let's jump back with Jules McConnel on the highs, the lows, and the learnings from her professional skydiving career.
Jules, what would be your one bit of advice that you would give to listeners of the show to help them perform at their own physical best, whatever the endeavours, whether they're trying to jump out of a plane 150 times in a day or run a half marathon? What would be your one piece of advice, Jules?
Good planning, like plan it well, whatever you're doing. Don't just rush into it, and then play the plan and you know, breathe and think. Because if you've got a good plan, it's much easier to do whatever you want to do. Whereas if you just have no idea, then you're working on the fly the whole time.
Jules, where can we follow your journey, and what's next for you? What's on your bucket list? We just spoke about the bucket list of people wanting to do a first jump, but what's on your bucket list after 10,500 plus jumps?
Well, I'm getting closer to 11,000, so that's. But look, our team. We're currently training for Siberia, which is I've never been to Siberia before. That's where the World Championships are happening next year. And yeah, we would like to stay on the podium. We got a bronze medal in Australia, which was amazing. We had our World Championships last October on the Gold Coast, and yeah, we managed to get on the podium, and we want to stay there. So, but it's going to take us some work to stay there because we know some other teams are training just as hard as we are. Yeah, I was in 2010 when I was doing the two-way with Michael, and we came second and beat the Russians in Russia.
Yeah, wow.
To do the same thing, and it'd be nice to beat the Russians in Russia again.
How often are the world champs? Are they every couple of years?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years, yeah. So you get your attempt every 2 years. Jules, every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Jules McConnell's physical challenge going to be?
Oh, well, chin-ups.
Come on.
Chin-ups.
How many?
Yes. Well, it depends. I mean, you know, you got to be realistic. If you can't do one, then try and work towards one, you know. But if you can do 10, then, you know, try and do 12 by, you know, give yourself a week.
Yeah, nice. Jules, where can we find out more about your journey and all that you're involved with?
Well, you can learn from following me on my own Facebook page, which is the Pull Your Strings, but you can also follow the Australian Parachute Federation Facebook page, and that has all the stuff that's happening around the country as far as sports skydiving.
Brilliant. So we'll hook that up on the show notes. And Jules, fun question, the personality question. 3 people at a dinner table, living or past. Who's at your table and why?
Oh, wow. I think I'd want my family. My mum and my sister and my brother.
Brilliant.
And why? Just because I love them.
That's perfect, hey? That's perfect. And you'd be having that on the ground, not in the plane. True?
Yeah, definitely.
You are wired differently even amongst the cohort of your family. So that's brilliant. Jules, finish these sentences. The most important thing in life is?
Having fun.
What drives you, Jules, to work hard?
I guess just to be better.
Where does pressure come from?
Oh, it comes from within, these silly little gremlins in your head, and you've just got to tell them no.
And Jules, what mistakes are you afraid of making?
Oh, this is a funny one. Yeah, I remember having a sports psychologist with me and Michael, and we both had the same thing. We didn't want to have a bad performance for our other teammates. You know, I don't want to be that person in the team that lets the team down, if that makes sense. So
the weak link in the chain, if you like.
Yeah.
And what advice did the sports psychologist practically give to help you realise that that's probably an undue pressure?
You know what he said? He said that's exactly what Michael said. So you've just got to talk to each other about that and realise that you've both got similar, sort of ungoals. They're not the right goals. Like you just got to trust each other. And more so trust yourself. That and the fact that we were both thinking the same thing means that but also that we thought the other person was awesome, and it was always we didn't want to let the team down. It's like, well, if we both think each other's awesome, then that's fine. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? So such a brilliant principle that transcends across so many things. Jules McConnel, you have a big event there on your doorstep right now as we speak, and also the moving forwards to Siberia and the World Champs, and certainly wish you all the best with the conquest moving forwards.
Thanks so much, Brad.
So there you have it. I hope and trust that you enjoyed this interest edition into all things skydiving, featuring record-setting Jules McConnel. If you did, then please let Jules know. You'll find all of Jules' contacts over on the show notes at pogophysio.com.au. A massive thanks to the 3 good folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Olding on all things graphic design. Thank you for those who have been hitting subscribe to ensure that the Physical Performance Show goes live in your device each and every week. That is the single best way to help the show grow. Followed, of course, by a huge thank you to those who have left reviews on iTunes. And in particular, this week, a big shout out to Planted Life, who rated the show 5 stars and commented, "Having found this podcast during a rehab phase, I have not only learnt more about the human body, but also learnt so much about the human mind. Through the art of conversation, I feel more connected, aware of both the elite and recreational athletes' successes and struggles. My daily listen, which fills me with motivation and knowledge. Thank you. I'm a better athlete for it." Planted Life, thank you for taking the time to leave that review. And that really captures the essence of the show, which is to help each and every one of the listeners of the show perform at their physical best. So thanks for taking the time to leave that review once again. If you'd like to leave a review, it's simple. Jump over to iTunes from your phone or your laptop or your desktop and review away. Massive thanks again to this week's show sponsor, the Gold Coast Marathon, for their support. Podcasts, as we say, they're free to enjoy and download. However, they are not free to produce, and the Gold Coast Marathon support means so much. And if you are looking for a great mid-year event and physical challenge inside Australia, then look no further than the first weekend in July for the amazing Gold Coast Marathon weekend. You can enjoy an event ranging from junior dashes right through to the full feature-length marathon, and you will find me there again on the first weekend in July. So if you're planning to run the Gold Coast Marathon, do let me know. You'll find me over on social media at Brad_Beer, and be sure to pop in and say hi. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we jump across to an expert edition featuring performance coach, exercise physiologist, and sports scientist for some of the world's fastest sprinters and jumpers by way of conversation with Joseph Coyne. Joseph Coyne has recently worked very closely with the Chinese Olympic Committee and their National Sports Training Centre, as well as conducting a PhD out of the UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas. We cover a whole lot, and for the first time we really dig deep into the sprinting athlete. Following Joseph's episode, we'll return to a featured performer episode with running superstar US Meb Klavetsky. So there's plenty of great episodes coming up. Be sure to be tuning in next week for the Physical Performance Show. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.